Welcome to the Leadership Press Podcast, episode number 3. My name is Mike Z. I'm your host. And man, as leaders, we feel the weight and the pressure that comes with the responsibility of leadership. But we want to press in. We want to get better a little bit more each and every day, and ultimately seeing that pressure as a privilege, because it's in the pressing that the oil is produced and that the purpose is revealed. And so if this content is helpful for you, if you enjoy it, would love for you to like, comment, subscribe, share it with somebody. We are on YouTube and Spotify, releasing a new episode the first of every month. Speaking of which, happy February. It's officially February. Here we are. In at least where we are in Virginia here, it is winter. It is cold. I am recovering from a cold. I had a cold this week, took me out. I hope that you are staying healthy. I'm going to be testing my own bounce back ability this week, getting back into the gym, back into my routines after recovering from that. But I hope that you're staying healthy and doing well. And excited for today's episode because it's going to be a little different than our first two. We're going to be answering a question today. So as mentioned, the Leadership Press started initially as a newsletter before it transformed into podcast form. And as a part of the newsletter, we have a form where people can submit questions. And so I want to make that available to you as well. We don't have a fancy URL or anything at the moment. So if you want to help support this, again, like, comment, subscribe. Eventually, maybe we'll get there. For now, I'm just going to be putting a link in the description on YouTube, Spotify, wherever I can. So if you want to look down there, you'll see it. You'll be able to click on it. It'll take you to a Google form. And if you've got a question that you want to ask, man, would love to be able to help walk alongside you in that. If it's something to do with leadership, please submit a question and let us know. But today, we're going to be answering one of the leadership questions that came in from our community. So let's dive on in. Veronica submits this question and she writes, I often feel responsible for making sure everything goes right. However, I know that can make it hard to let go and trust others. How do you discern what to hold on to and what to release so your leadership empowers others instead of carrying it all yourself? It's a great question, Veronica. There's a few questions within this question, and so we're kind of dismantle it a little bit, break it apart. But I want to affirm a few things really quickly here. One, I think the fact that you're here and that you're asking this question is the sign of a healthy leader. I think it's great. And two, taking responsibility is a mark of a great leader. Like leaders who aren't willing to take responsibility, leaders who aren't willing to own anything, really can't lead anything. I mean, is there anything more agitating than people who play the blame game? People who are always making excuses. You know, it's always their fault. Like they did what's wrong. They did this. They said that. Like they're the issue. They're the problem. And people who abdicate responsibility will never be responsible for anything. And how can you lead something that you're not responsible for? And so I think it's key in that it's great that you're here and feeling that pressure of taking responsibility and feeling that weight of wanting everything to go right. I think the shift is understanding that my responsibility as a leader isn't to make sure that everything goes right. Like, it's not about me controlling the outcome. Like, that's impossible, really. Like, my responsibility as a leader is, one, to make sure that I'm leading myself well. I want to make sure that I'm healthy. And two, it's to make sure that my team is right, that they're in a healthy place too, so that when things do go wrong, because they will, like plans will change. People are going to make mistakes. They're going to drop balls. Like life is going to happen. But if I've gotten myself right, and if I've gotten the team right, then we'll be ready for whatever goes wrong. Like the goal isn't to create a world where nothing ever goes wrong, like where everything always goes right. Like that's impossible. And that's a weight, that's a responsibility, dare I say, that's a pressure that most leaders will put on themselves. And it's something that we don't need to be carrying, because ultimately I think that is a pressure that will eventually crush you. Like, no matter how hard you try, like, you can't keep things going perfectly all the time. And I would even venture to say that if you're trying so hard to make everything go perfectly, you're either really carrying all that weight yourself, which, like I said, is going to crush you, or eventually you're going to burn out, or like you're not trusting your team enough and you're squeezing the life out of them, probably. So the goal is really to create a healthy team that's aligned and as prepared as they can be for when things do go wrong, right? That way we can respond, we can adjust, we can move forward. Of course, like, especially as leaders, like, we love to focus on results. I mean, who doesn't, right? But really the most important thing isn't necessarily like a flawless outcome. It's a faithful input. This is what we talked about last month, right? Consistency over intensity. It's about being consistent. It's about showing up as healthy as I can be. If everything's healthy, the leader's healthy, if the culture is right, if the communication is clear, if the team has been empowered, then even when something breaks or if something doesn't go according to plan, like, we're good because we've built the right people, not just the right plan. So yes, like, take responsibility, take ownership. That's good, but like, change the target. Don't aim for perfection of outcomes. Aim for preparation of people, because great leadership isn't necessarily about preventing problems. It's about preparing a team who can handle the problems when they come. And so Veronica asks, how do you discern what to hold on to and what to release as a leader? And I love this question because it really gets right to the heart of healthy leadership, which is ultimately, I think, about stewardship, not about control, but how am I stewarding these things that have been entrusted to me, right? And then, Veronica, you really said, I think, what's so key here in the question itself, so your leadership can empower others instead of carrying it all yourself, right? And leadership can be really lonely, but I don't think it has to be. Like as a leader, like, you need the team. You really need each other. They need you too. And like, we are carrying this heavy mission, this heavy objective. I don't know if you've ever like helped somebody move before. We live in a very transient area, so I feel like there's always somebody moving in or moving out. Have helped so many different people move into their homes or move out of their homes. I don't know if you've ever helped someone before and like had a really heavy piece of furniture that you've had to help carry, like maybe a really big, heavy couch, or had someone who had a very, very heavy dresser, and we had to carry it up or down these steps. And so we, of course, wanted to approach this as including as many people on it as possible, because the more people that there were, like, the easier it was on the whole, right? This is the simplicity of just like weight distribution, right? Like, the more people that there are holding this thing, the easier it is on each of us because we're doing it together. But as people step away, there'll be moments where we have to turn a corner and this guy's got to step away for a minute. When they step away, that requires each of us to have to carry this thing a little bit more, and it gets a little bit heavier and heavier. And so, my goodness, if all of the weight and responsibility is riding on you, it will eventually crush you. Like, you might be able to sustain for a little bit, but man, it's not going to be long before you ultimately succumb to that. It's like the old saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Like, you need the team. And so, how do we know what's ours to carry? Like, how do I discern what to carry and what to give away? Well, I want to give you 4 key questions today that you can ask yourself as a leader in discerning, man, do I hold it or do I release it? Question number 1. What must I own as the leader? Like, as the leader, what are the things that only I can do? These are the things that I cannot delegate. I cannot hand them off to someone else. I must own these things as the leader. A few quick things that I think the leader should own. One, I think the leader should own the vision. Leaders got to own the vision. It all starts with vision. As Helen Keller once said, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. Like, if the vision is unclear, everything downstream is going to suffer. And so, as the leader, you really got to be able to paint a vivid picture of the future, of like where we're going, like why this matters, like what success ultimately looks like. Because everybody on your team ultimately wants to know this one thing. They want to know, how is what I'm doing today ultimately connected to where we want to be tomorrow? And vision is the thing that bridges that gap. It connects the two of those. And so I think the leaders got to own the vision. They also got to own the culture and the values. I think this is so important. Like, certainly you can empower others to carry the culture, right? The team's got to carry the culture, but you as the leader, only you can set the culture. Like, you can collaborate with others to inform this, but I think this is one of like the key pressure points of leadership, that like you set the bar when it comes to the culture of the team and of the organization. Like, you help shape the values. And so it's a bit of this dichotomy of like, as the leader, like I get to set the bar. Like, I get to set the bar for what the culture should look like, for what the culture should be. However, it's not so simple as just like printing it out on a poster and putting it on the wall somewhere, right? Because I set the bar, right? I set the bar for the team by how I live these things out. And so what I do and what I say and how I respond and the decisions that I make, like these things all set the precedent. I set the bar for the team. And so this is why, like, as the leader, you want to be really careful with how you're shaping the values of your organization. Because, man, if you tell your team that excellence is a value, but man, your leadership and your lifestyle don't reflect those things, you are going to completely erode trust with your team. And so you got to own the vision. I think you got to own the culture and the values. And these are really just two like mission critical items that I think that as the leader, you got to own them. But you've really got to figure out and dissect, I guess, what are the key essentials for you in your context? Because it's probably going to look a little different for everybody. Like, what are the things that I, as the leader, must own that only I can do? And everything rises and falls on leadership. I think it's John Maxwell. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And so while you might, as the leader, yes, be ultimately responsible for everything, that doesn't mean that you have to do everything. I think great leaders know that responsibility actually includes knowing what not to do as much as they know what to do. And when trying to determine what to hold on to and what to release, an overly simplified method would probably just be like, hey, is this something that is really mission critical? This is something that as a leader, I want to stay really close to this. Or is this something that is like just preference based? It's just a simple methodology. Is this something that can be somebody else's responsibility? Those are things that you want to release and you want to empower your team with. Ultimately, you're going to have to make the call on what it is that's, that you've got to own as the leader. But asking yourself the question, what are the things that I as the leader, what must I own as the leader? Question number 2. Am I the lid or the lift? Am I the lid or the lift? Like, you can't do everything. You can't do everything, so why are you trying to do everything? I think this is the challenge for a lot of really gifted doers, gifted entrepreneurs, because like starting out, usually you are the team, right? Like you are the HR department, you are the finance department, you are the operations department. But as the organization is growing, like you have to learn how to empower others, how to delegate and how to hand off things. Because if you hold on to everything, you actually become the lid that limits everything. You limit your team then. You limit the organization. You limit yourself. You limit your own leadership. Again, this is another John Maxwell, like the leadership godfather. This is another thing, right? He teaches on the law of the lid. Essentially, what he's saying is that the lid to your leadership is not your title. The lid to your leadership isn't your team. It's not your context. It's not your boss. Like ultimately, you are the lid to your own leadership. And so asking in this context, wherever you're at, am I the lid right now or am I the lift? Like if you have to hold on to everything, then I actually become the bottleneck. I actually become the barrier to growth. And if I become the lid, like if everything relies on my approval, then my leadership has actually become the ceiling and growth will come to a screeching halt. But if you're able to release the right things to the right people, like then you become the lift that raises everything. If every decision has to go through you, you become the bottleneck. And so you got to be able to empower others and learn to let things go. And not everyone is going to be able to do everything the way that maybe you once did it or the way that you want it perfectly done. And so just remember that, leadership is about stewardship. It's not about control. You're not trying to control everything. You're trying to steward well and you're trying to empower. And so you want to live by what I call the 70% rule, okay? If someone is able to do the task, if they're able to do the thing 70% as well as you did or as you could, it's time to delegate it. They might not be able to do it at 95, 100%. They might not be able to do it 80%. But if they can do it at 70% as well as you did it or somebody else, like it's time to delegate. It's time to hand it off. It's time to empower them with it. Man, people do not grow when we withhold responsibility from them. They grow when we entrust them with it. Am I the lid or the lift? Question number 3. What am I called to carry? It is about gifting. What am I called to carry? Is this thing aligned with how I'm wired, how I've been gifted, right? You really want to protect as much of the work as possible that is very life-giving for you, that is, like we talked about earlier, that's vision shaping, that's culture forming. And then any of the work that drains you, that really has, diminishing impact, like that's the work that you want to hand off and release very quickly. Like if you're not a detail-oriented person, then why are you trying to be in all the details? There are people who love the details. There are people who love working in spreadsheets. That might not make any sense to you, but there are people who actually enjoy that. Like when you say, hey, can you pull this report or put together this data for me? Like that's a gift for them. And so just be thinking, like, if you're still holding on to some of those responsibilities, like what opportunities might you actually be robbing your team of by holding on to those tasks? I was talking with someone recently who has climbed the org chart and really gotten to a place that they dreamed of. But they came to a realization, and they use this analogy of recognizing of themselves saying, I've come to realize that, like, I'm not Batman, I'm Robin, and I'm okay with that. I think that's so important and so powerful. Like knowing your gifting, right? Like when leaders try to lead outside their gifting, when they try to lead outside of their calling, one, ultimately it burns them out, like it drains them, right? And when they do lead within their gifting and calling, like they bloom, like they blossom. Like it's so awkward. Like it's so awkward to think, like nobody wants Robin trying to be Batman, right? Like that's so awkward, right? And so it's so important for you to know what your calling is, like to know thyself, right? Like do you know your own strengths? Do you know your weaknesses? Are you utilizing them? Are you utilizing assessment tools? These things will help you maximize your impact, help you to align your work with your giftings, with your geniuses. This is ultimately what you want to do. You want to quickly release any of the work that is really, really consuming your energy. If it's work that is ultimately better aligned with somebody else's giftings. Oh, you love spreadsheets? Here, let me give you a gift. And you got to see it as that. I know to you it might be dreadful. I hate doing this, but to them, again, they love it. It's like giving them a gift. And so, man, if this aligns with somebody else's giftings, you want to make sure that you're handing it off quickly and giving it to them. If there's work that is preventing you from leading at the right altitude, hand that stuff off. But if there's work that is life-giving for you, it aligns with your gifting, it aligns with your calling. Again, if it's vision shaping, if it's culture forming, high impact, this is the kind of work that you want to stay close to and that you want to hold on to. Man, what am I called to carry? And then last but not least, question number 4, is my grip about excellence or about fear? This one stings a little bit for me, if I'm being honest, because I think a lot of times we hold on to responsibilities. We grasp tightly onto things because, if we're being honest, we don't want the ball dropped. We don't like the idea of our name or our brand being associated with something that's not up to a level of excellence that we think that it should be, right? It's not up to par. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to have to open up our hands, right, and release something. We don't want to have to depend on somebody else who ultimately might not deliver in the end, right? Or we're afraid. We're afraid of losing control of something, or we have a fear that, like, if I release this thing, then I'm no longer needed. I'm no longer wanted. And honestly, I think that these are leadership things, but I also think they're just like human issues. Like I think every leader faces these things in one way or another, and so I think this is a big question that you've got to do some searching on if you're trying to discern through some of this. Man, why am I gripping so tightly onto this thing? Why am I so reluctant to release this or to let go of it? Like, what am I afraid of? I think Veronica in her question, she ultimately said it was so key here. Feeling responsible for making sure that everything goes right. She said, but she recognizes can make it hard to let go and to trust others. Makes it really hard to let go and to trust others. And oh my gosh, that's so important because your team's never going to feel trusted. They're never going to feel valued if you never value them enough to entrust them with anything. And like, it begs the question, like, as the leader, like, if you have young people on your team and you don't trust them, like, why are they on your team? Is this really about them? Like, it might be. Like, it might mean that you might need to have a hard conversation with somebody, but I think a lot of the time that this really ultimately falls back on us as the leader. And leaders go first. And so in order to earn trust, you got to give trust. Like, how can the team even begin to feel trustworthy if you don't ever deem them worthy enough to be entrusted with something? The best way to figure out if you can trust someone with something is to trust them. If your team, my goodness, like if your team senses that you trust them, like I say, watch out, like in the best way. Because I have found that a team that knows that they have your trust will often go above and beyond. Like they will often stretch, sacrifice, and go the extra mile. But if your team is feeling like controlled, feeling restricted, feeling micromanaged, if you're not entrusting them with things, that's going to cause them to shrink back. That's going to cause them not to want to trust you. It's going to put a guard up. They're going to want to protect themselves. And so it's a great leadership litmus test. Like, is the reason why I'm really holding on to this thing, is it really about excellence? Or is it about the fact that like I'm just afraid, I'm just fearful? It sounds like this could be a really great area to press into. All right, so some reminders as we wrap this thing up today. Our kind of mind shift for the day today, right, is recognizing that my responsibility as a leader isn't to ensure that everything goes right. I can't guarantee that everything's going to go right. It's not about controlling every single outcome. Like, that is impossible. My responsibility as leader is to make sure, one, that I've gotten myself right. I want to get myself in a healthy place. I want to lead myself well. So how am I leading myself emotionally, physically, spiritually, relationally? I want to get myself in the right place. And then I want to make sure that my team is right also, right? So that when things do go wrong, you and your team are ready for it. And then as a leader, man, how do I know? How do I discern? How do I figure out like what to carry and what to release? Well, what must I own as a leader? What are the things that only I can carry? And then, am I the lid or am I the lift? What am I called to carry? What's my calling? What's my gifting? How am I wired? And then if I'm gripping tightly, is it really about excellence, or is it ultimately about fear? What is it that I'm really afraid of? Look, if it's vision, if it's culture, if it's mission critical, these are things that we want to hold on to. We want to keep them close. But if it's preference-based, if it's methodology, if it's task-oriented, if it's something that drains me, I want to release these things. I want to release very quickly any work that is just routine and repeatable and somebody else can easily step into. If it's something that's also maybe going to grow or develop another team member, if it's work that somebody can do hitting the 70% rule, if they can do it 70% as well, then you want to trust them with it. Veronica, I want to thank you so much for submitting your question this month. I hope that this content has been helpful. And again, if you have a leadership question that you'd like to ask, man, click the link in the description. I'll do my best to cover what I can in a future episode. But thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Like, comment, subscribe, follow, do all the things. Share this with a leader that you think could benefit from it, and keep pressing in. Keep leading strong. If you keep going, you'll keep growing. Love you, grateful for you. We'll see you next month.